Hi all, I am talking about a green algae, Spirogyra, Spirogyra. The systematic position is class Chlorophyceae, order Conjugates, suborder Cycnomoideae, family Cycnamaceae, and the genus is Spirogyra. It is cosmopolitan in distribution and is a freshwater algae. You might have noticed silky green algae floating in the ponds or in the stagnant water. These are the Spirogyra. Because of the silky green appearance, the Spirogyra is also known as pond silk, water silk, or mermaid tree. Now, coming on to the thallus structure of the algae Spirogyra, it is an unbranched filamentous structure. It is having unbranched filamentous structure, and the filaments are multicellular, and each cell carries a single nucleus. The filament is very slimy due to the presence of mucilaginous sheath. The unbranched filament of the Spirogyra consists of a number of elongated or rectangular cylindrical cells of similar type joined end to end. Each cell of the Spirogyra consists of an outer cell wall. This is the outer cell wall, and the cell wall will be having two layers, outer cellulose layer and inner pectus layer. Inside the cell wall there is a lining of the cytoplasm. You can see the yellow colored area inside the cell wall. This is the cytoplasm, but the cytoplasm is remaining peripherally in the form of a thin layer. The nucleus is centrally located. This is the nucleus, and the nucleus is seen suspended with the help of cytoplasmic strands. These are the cytoplasmic strands. Now, coming on to the chloroplast is ribbon shaped and 1 to 6 in number. See this, the chloroplast is ribbon shaped. This is the ribbon shaped chloroplast, and this is 1 to 6, and in some cases there will be 12 ribbons of chloroplast in Spirogyra. In the chloroplast, you can see numerous pyrenoids suspended in it. These are the pyrenoids. The functionality of the pyrenoid is the fixation of carbon during photosynthesis. This is the cellular structure of algae Spirogyra. The chloroplast is spirally coiled. All the ribbons present inside the cell will be spirally coiled like this. If you look into the structure of pyrenoid, the pyrenoid will be having a central protein which is surrounded by a sheath of starch. This is all about the cellular structure of the algae Spirogyra. Now, coming on to the reproduction in Spirogyra, the reproduction is taking place through two methods, the vegetative reproduction and sexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction is not at all a common process in the case of Spirogyra. Only 1 or 2 members are showing the asexual reproduction. So, it is said that the asexual reproduction is totally absent in the case of Spirogyra. The vegetative reproduction is taking place during the favorable condition, but the asexual reproduction is taking place during the unfavorable condition. Now, the vegetative reproduction. The vegetative reproduction is taking place through the fragmentation, that is, the filaments are broken down into small fragments. And this fragmentation may be due to the mechanical damage or dissolving middle lamella, and each fragment will develop into a new thallus. Now, the asexual reproduction. The asexual reproduction is taking place through the aplanospore formation and echinate formation. This is not at all a common process in the case of Spirogyra. During unfavorable condition, the cytoplasm will round off and develop a thick wall around the cytoplasm. This is known as the aplanospores. In the case of echinate, the thick wall is produced around the cell wall. If the thick wall is produced around the cell wall, it is known as echinates. If the thick wall is produced around the protoplasm, this is known as the aplanospores. Now, the third method of reproduction, sexual reproduction. The sexual reproduction is taking place through the conjugation. Sexual reproduction is taking place through conjugation. During sexual reproduction, there is a cyclic process. First, the gametes are produced inside the gametangia. The first process in the sexual reproduction is production of the gametes inside the gametangia, and this is taking place towards the end of growing season. Now, the two gametes fuses forming a zygote. The Spirogyra is a haploid member, so the gamete will also be a haploid. When two haploid gametes are fusing, a diploid zygote is produced. When zygote produces a thick wall around it, it is now known as the zygospore. During the onset of favorable condition, the nucleus inside the zygospore, diploid nucleus inside the zygospore undergo reduction division producing 4 haploid nuclei, but only one will survive. That zygospore with a surviving single nucleus germinate into a new filament. This is taking place during the sexual reproduction. Now, the conjugation. Now, coming on to the method of sexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction is taking place through the conjugation. Taking place through conjugation. There are two types of conjugation, scalariform conjugation and a lateral conjugation. In scalariform conjugation, there will be plus strain and minus strain. That is, when a male filament approaches the female filament, there happens a scalariform conjugation. So, it is known as heterothalic type. Heterothalic type. In the case of lateral conjugation, it is taking place in the same filament itself. That is, the different cells of the same filament is acting as plus and a minus. So, it is a monoecious type of reproduction. So, this is known as homothalic. That is, the lateral conjugation will always be homothalic, but the scalariform conjugation will always be heterothalic. The lateral conjugation is again divided into two types, the direct lateral conjugation and the indirect lateral conjugation. Thus, there are two types of conjugation, scalariform conjugation and lateral conjugation. Lateral conjugation again divided into direct lateral conjugation and indirect lateral conjugation. Now, in the case of scalariform conjugation, I have told you that the scalariform conjugation is taking place in heterothalic members. That is, the male and female filaments will be different. When male filament approaches a female filament, it will produce a papilla-like outgrowth. See this. This is the papilla-like outgrowth. The papilla-like outgrowth is produced in the opposite cells of different filaments. The papilla-like outgrowth now joins and the point of joining dissolves, forming a conjugation tube. See this. This is the conjugation tube. That is, the protoplasm from the male filament can move into the female filament through conjugation tube. During these stages, that is during the formation of conjugation tube, the cytoplasm inside the cells, both the cells round off producing the gametes. Now the cell is known as gametangia, and the protoplasm is known as gametes. That is, plus gametangia will be carrying the plus type of gamete and minus type of gametangia will be carrying minus gametes. In Spirogyra, the gametes are motionless, so they are known as aplanogametes. They are also known as aplanogametes, A-P-L-A-N-O, aplanogametes. The movement in aplanogametes is amoeboid type. Amoeboid type of movement. It shows amoeboid type of movement. The plus gamete from plus gametangia slowly moves into the minus gametangia, and the minus gametangia will be having negative type of minus type of gamete, that is the female gamete. The male gamete fuses with the female gamete producing a diploid zygote. After the formation of diploid zygote, the gametangia, the male gametangia will be empty. See this, the male gametangia is empty and the female gametangia is carrying the diploid zygote. This is happening in Scalariform conjugation. Now, coming on to the lateral conjugation, I have told you there are two types of lateral conjugation. The first one is known as direct method, and the second one is known as indirect method of lateral conjugation. We will look into the indirect method of lateral conjugation. The filaments taking part in the lateral conjugation are homothalic, that is the same two different cells in the same filament is acting as male and the female, so it is known as homothalic type. One of the cell will act as a male cell and the other one will act as the female cell. The two adjacent cells are taking part in lateral conjugation. During the lateral conjugation, indirect type of lateral conjugation, a papilla is produced in the cells side by side. The papilla will be produced side by side. The wall will dissolve, the septum will dissolve and form a conjugation tube. Later, the septum dissolves and forms a conjugation tube. One of the cell will be acting as the male cell and the other will be acting as the female cell. The protoplasm round off producing a male gamete and a female gamete. The male gamete will move into the female gamete. Gametangium, male gamete from the male gametangium move into the female gametangium and fuses with the female gamete producing a diploid zygote. In the case of direct method of lateral conjugation, one cell is acting as the plus type and the other cell is acting as the minus type, and a conjugation tube is produced in the middle of the septa. the middle of the septa, the conjugation tube is produced. The male gamete will move into the female gamete and fuses with the female gamete, producing diploid zygote. This is all about the different types of conjugation, the scalariform conjugation and lateral conjugation. Once the zygote is produced, it will produce a thick wall around it, forming the zygospore. The zygospore will be diploid, having the nucleus of plus and minus type. During the onset of favorable condition, the diploid nucleus undergo reduction division, producing 4 haploid nucleus. But only one of the nucleus will survive and the other will degenerate. Now, the zygospore having the haploid surviving nucleus germinate, producing new filament. Now, coming on to the life cycle in the case of Spirogyra, you can see the diagram. This is haplontic type of life cycle. Haplontic. This is showing haplontic type of life cycle. That is, the filaments are of haploid type. The gametes are of the haploid type. Only diploid phase is the zygospore. So, this type of life cycle is known as haplontic life cycle. This is all about the life cycle in the case of Spirogyra. Happy learning. Thank you all.